David, thank you, David Esslinger and David Stowe, but David Esslinger, thank you for your efforts so far in putting this great book together. You're on mute.
There I am. There you are. Thank you. You're welcome. It's been pretty steep learning curve the past couple of months, but I've absolutely enjoyed it. I've learned more about our school district in the last 3 or 4 months than I've known in the past 20 years. So
You're still here.
I'm still here. Yes.
Well, that's good. And to fellow board members, I saw the questions going around today asking about certain budget items. That's great. Good engagement so far on the budget process. So, Dr. Snowden, you have opening comments before we get going?
Yes, thank you. I will have to tell on Dr. Esslinger. We started discussing the budget process, and I said, well, you've been in all the budget work sessions in years past. He said, Dr. Snowden, he said, I hate to say it, but we're back there. We've got work that we had going on, and we weren't paying a lot of attention to the budget work session. So
I was scoring rubrics during all the teacher evaluation rubrics is what I was doing back there.
I noticed you perked up, though, whenever we mentioned construction projects. That, frankly,
yes, that's true.
But I certainly want to commend Dr. Esslinger. He's rolled up his sleeves, so to speak, and he certainly had a steep learning curve, as he mentioned, but he has closed that curve significantly. Working with Mr. Arnold was, I think, extremely important, and we certainly appreciate Chuck's willingness to answer questions that David had, and David and the finance folks have done a great job putting this together. And I also like to commend Dr. Stevens and the teaching and learning team for their efforts in developing these operational budgets. They've all done a great job. So with that said, we'll turn it over to Dr. Esslinger, unless Mr. Stillings, unless you have something else to add.
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. Well, welcome to the first budget work session for the 2021 budget. And before we begin digging into some numbers here, I would like to kind of echo some things Dr. Snowden said and thank all the leadership team members, specifically Chuck Arnold and Teresa Dixon, who have helped me out quite a bit, and their diligent work that they put into this whole budget process. The data and the figures that we are about to discuss over the next 3 work sessions, they represent a lot of hours of data collection and analysis of spending, all focused around what is best for children. And I want you to believe that, because that's the absolute truth. There's been a lot of conversation around what is best for the children of our district. I also want to thank Susanna Gentry for that great picture on the cover of the notebook. I don't know if you've taken a notice of the cover photo, which is very fitting for this time that we are involved with. So I thought that was a good cover. So thank you, Susanna. And as I begin reviewing what will be a lot of information over the next 3 work sessions, please don't hesitate to ask questions. I know that's not a problem with our board. You guys ask a lot of questions, and I'll do my best to answer them as soon as I can. If I don't know the answer, I will find out and get right back with you. So with that being said, let's take a look at tab 1 under general information. The first page is a summary of our work together in the next 3 work sessions. Our first work session tonight will begin with a presentation of statistical data that might be of interest to you all. It will be followed by a presentation of the non-personnel expenditure budgets for finance and administration and teaching and learning. Our second work session is scheduled for May 28th, and it will be the most financially significant work session of this budget process. At that session, I will include personnel budgets, projections, revenue budgets and projections, and an update on our bond-funded capital projects, as well as other items that you can see there on that brief table of contents there on that page. And then the third work session will be scheduled for June 15th. The session will be devoted to finalizing any unfinished business with the general purpose fund items from the first two work sessions, and projections regarding revenue and expenditures from all the other programs, the federal projects, child nutrition program, morning and afternoon care, debt service, and regular capital projects. So our goal will be to conclude the budget preparation in time to allow you all to have a review of the final budget recommendation before you take action on it at the July board meeting. Okay? Moving to tab 2. Now, this is dated April 20th because we ordered the tabs before we changed our plans. So please ignore that. It is for our first work session. You'll see the first page, a table of contents for this work session in a more detailed format for our discussions tonight. The next page is an introduction highlighting some significant points to consider as we begin our budget discussions together. And if you will allow me, I'd like to read that verbatim. So below are some significant points to consider as we begin our budget discussions for 2021. In fiscal year 18-19, the general purpose budget fund experienced an almost $2 million negative impact from the 18-19 Vanderbilt University hospital property tax appeal and the 18-19 mold remediation expenditures associated with Liberty Elementary. These two events caused the district, FSSD, to begin fiscal year 19-20 with a lower than normal general purpose fund balance. In the 19-20 budget, 1.6 cents were moved from the property tax rate for general purpose to the debt service budget to meet the 19-20 debt service requirements. Debt service requirements for 2021 should decrease by approximately $1.5 million due to the full repayment of the 1999 bond series. Therefore, we hope to be able to redirect some property tax collections back to the general purpose fund. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused much uncertainty in our economy, specifically as it relates to the potential effect of local revenues. That sort of sets the backdrop for our discussions tonight. And I'd also like to share some additional points. So you may want to take some notes about some figures here as I lay the groundwork for our conversation regarding some other points to consider as we get into this. To date, we are $266,231 short of meeting our budgeted property tax collections. If the last 2 months of collections equal the 3-year average of the same time periods, we will be shy of our budgeted property tax collections by $45,663. However, there is a wide variance in those months of collections over the year, over the historical analysis. So we are still hopeful that we will meet our property tax collections. That is the Williams County property tax and the FSSD property tax collections combined. Additionally, as we attempt to predict the last 2 months of sales tax collections for this fiscal year, we felt it prudent to make the following adjustments to typical year-end tax collections. Since June's collections reflect the spending of March, and our local economy was open for most of the month of March, we've estimated these collections to be that of 75% of June of 2019's collections. July's collections reflect the spending of April. This is the month we believe we will see the most significant impact, most significant effect of the COVID-19 shutdown, and expect to see the largest gap over prior year comparisons. We've estimated collections to be 50% that of July of 2019. We are hopeful that our strong economy in Williamson County will return quickly. However, if our projections hold true, we will end this fiscal year $220,886 below what we've budgeted for sales tax revenues. Additionally, we can expect to see a drop in the collections in August of 2020 as it will reflect the gradual reopening of our economy from the sales of May of 2020. Some good news. The shutdown has decreased several of our expenditure line items. For example, we are projecting a $21,903 savings in fuel costs, diesel fuel costs, as compared to last fiscal year. We're estimating $31,254 in utility cost savings as compared to last fiscal year. And Liberty Mutual will apply a $4,441 discount or credit to our auto policy since our bus fleet has been sitting idle over the past couple of months. They've not been in use. So the savings estimated to be $57,598. So that is some good news in all the preliminary pieces of bad news I shared before that. Any questions before I move on? Hearing none. You can all still hear me, right?
I have a question.
Can everybody still hear me?
Find my microphone. I understand. Oh yeah.
Sure.
We can hear you.
I understand what you said.
Thank you.
I'm wondering about the property taxes. Any understanding as to why the property tax collection has been less?
Well, remember what I've estimated is based on a 3-year average of the 3 years prior. And there is a wide variety or wide variance between what we collect in June and July. So like 1 year we may have, because most people have already paid their property tax by this point in the year. So we're just getting the remnants of people paying property taxes at this point. I don't have an answer for the question, but the point I want to make is, as I looked at the history of what we receive in June and July, it's all over the board. There's a high number 1 year, lower number the next year. So in an effort to estimate our receipt moving forward, our projected revenues, I did a 3-year average. And with that being said, we will be shy around 45,000 if the projection holds true. Now that also is understanding that those 3-year averages were based on 3 property value assessments from 3 years ago, and they've increased since then. So I'm hopeful we'll meet our projection, but that still remains to be seen. Anything else before we move on? Okay. The next series of pages behind this tab is a roll-up of the non-payroll information that will be presented to you tonight in further detail. And if you let me, I will take a minute and just give you a brief overview of the worksheets. The first column is the account number followed by a description of expenses represented within the account. The next column represents current year revised budget figures upon the date of the printing of this document, followed by the requested budget amount for year 2021. These are the figures that we will review tonight in greater detail. The next column, entitled Improvements, will reflect significant adjustments, if any, followed by a rounded total budgeted total per column. This next column will capture any pay increases, as well as review of payroll lines. We'll do that in work session 2. And finally, you'll see a grand total column followed by a column that compares the total requested for fiscal year 2021 to the revised budget of our current year. I would like to direct you to the last page of this document. It is should be page 5, but it was misnumbered as general purpose roll-up number 1. I hit print and it restarted that page numbering system, so forgive me for that. So the last page is general purpose roll-up 1. And I want to bring your attention to the grand total amount requested for non-payroll expenditures. As you see, the requested amount is $618,034 more than the budgeted amount in fiscal year 1920. The largest portion of this increase is due to the agreement to use Staff EZ for our substitutes. And if you recall earlier this year, we submitted a budget amendment which moved all substitute pay out of payroll accounts, which are not shown, into the contracted services accounts, which are shown. That makes up the biggest change for non-payroll expenditures. It's my intention to build on this document, sharing additional components with you at each work session and culminating in a final budget for your approval prior to the July board meeting.
Hey, David?
Yes, sir.
Back to the first page there, the third column, 1920 revised budget. Drill down a little bit deeper on where that number comes from, what is comprised of that number, how it has changed from the budget document that was passed a year ago.
Okay. That revised budget, it incorporates any budget amendments that you have passed to the date of this printing, which was end of February, March. See, we have to draw a line in the sand at some point, and budget amendments are something that happen every so often, but that incorporates, comes from a report from our accounting software, and it brings the budget amount to an Excel document that I then use for comparison purposes. That budget amount is where it stands at the point of printing. So if budget amendments have happened where we've moved money from one account to another account, then it's reflected here. So to answer your question would require quite a bit of finagling, but it is reflected in all the budget amendments that has been presented to the board. Any changes were presented to the board in budget amendments.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, David, I had a question. So would we assume then that the money from Staff EZ that wasn't the money that was in payroll has now been transferred to this budget, the non-personnel? So there'll be a deficit in the other budget where we used to have the expenses for substitute teachers. Is that correct?
You'll see zero.
Out of it?
You'll see zero totals in those line items, and that's already been done for this year. However, when you compare it to the original budget, they're still in that line item. So that's why the difference.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. We'll move on to tab 3, FSSD statistics. It's a blue tab. The sources of this information were the state annual, the 2019 annual statistical report from the state report card from the spring of 2019, and the NEA rankings of the state's April 2019. And I will just briefly walk you through some of this data, and just stop me if you have any questions. I'll be glad to answer any questions or try to slow down if you need me to. So on pages statistics 1 and 2, you'll find various demographic information from years 2013-14 through 2018-19. In comparing 2018-19 to the previous year, you'll see that our average daily membership decreased by 75 students from 3528 to 3453. Our ethnic composition essentially remained the same. The number of economically disadvantaged students decreased by almost 2.4%, while Williamson County's economically disadvantaged percentage increased by 1.1%. And I will note a question that was brought up today, I believe, that the state economically disadvantaged percentage changed in 2015. They had a different criteria. The state economically disadvantaged number makes up part of the district free and reduced percentage. It's not the total free and reduced percentage. Our ELL population generally maintained the same percentage. Student with disabilities decreased by 33 students, reflecting less than a 1% change from 18-19 to 17-18. Moving to the next page, statistics 2. You'll see our personnel
David,
number. Yes, sir.
I wanted to interject something related to economically disadvantaged or poverty situations. And many of you heard me say this back when we had an economic recession back in 08, 09, and possibly it carried over to 2010. We do expect to see an increase because of this economic downturn of our students of poverty. And as you know, you've got two kinds of poverty: generational poverty and situational poverty. Our generational poverty numbers do not change a whole lot from year to year. But when we have economic downturns, depressions, recession, whatever terminology you want to use, then you normally see an increase in our students on free lunch and reduced lunch. And we're anticipating seeing the same thing for this next budget year. But again, we've talked about this in 08, 09 when that happened, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention as we move forward. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. The next page, statistics, page 2. You'll see that our personnel number decreased in comparison to the year previous, 18-19 to 17-18. In 18 and 19, we showed our average teacher salary to be $60,165, which continued to outpace both the state by $8,451 and Williamson County by $8,940. Additionally, we were just short of the national average by $1,565. Our spending per pupil was $15,557, and that significantly outpaces the state and national averages. Our district's funding sources remain consistent. In 18-19, the FSSD was primarily funded by local dollars at 69.5%, followed by state funds at 25.3% and federal funds by 5.3%. Our property tax rate remained the same, and our ADM revenue split with Williamson County continued to decrease due to the continued growth in Williamson County schools. Later on in the work session, you'll see where our latest split with Williamson County is now 0.07523 compared to the 0.0763 1.32. Moving on to statistics page 3, which continues with a chart showing our free and reduced population per school as of February of 2020. The overall free and reduced lunch percentage in February was 39.1%, and the same time period in 2019 was 39.7%. You will also see some charts that reflect our ethnic composition of students by number and percentage at each school, as well as a chart that shows building capacity as compared to the student population as of February 2020. The final chart at the bottom shows a comparison of student numbers from February 2020 to February of 2019, which shows a slight increase of 37 students.
Is there a explanation or just a thought on why the 2 Poplar Grove campuses have had the reduction in students more than any other school?
It's primarily because the grandfathered families are slowly transitioning out. Still believe some development that the new development that's going to go in on Del Rio, that's going to help. There was nothing magical about the decision in 2012 on the zones, except for the fact that we knew we had to create those dual zones to keep Poplar Grove from being overcrowded during that transitional time from grandfathered students, from grandfathered families as they transitioned out. So as you know, and as we talked about before, 3 of our elementary schools, basically the 3 on this side of the town, of the city, have smaller enrollments, but they're very similar in size. Poplar Grove, Franklin Elementary, and Johnson Elementary, where you got Liberty and Moore, somewhat different geographic locations, are still considerably larger than the 3 elementary schools closer to this side of our boundaries.
Okay, we're ready to move on. On statistics page 4 and 5, you'll see our latest notification from the state, also known as weighted full-time equivalent ADA percentage, which reflects a continued decrease from 7.63% of students to approximately 7.523% of Williamson County, of the students in Williamson County. This is the percentage that is the basis for our receipt of local education funding. And this was also the basis of our annual ADA adjustment. And last April at the board meeting, you saw that on your sales tax report of $67,495. And you saw that reflected on the sales tax report in your April board packet. So moving forward into next year, we will use the 7.523 to estimate our revenues received from Williamson County taxes and sales taxes. Finally, on pages 6 and 7 under this section, you'll see a comparative statistics on the number of tuition students, out of district students in our district, which has remained fairly level since 2015-16. Of the 120 in our current year, 27 were children of non-employees and 93 were children of FSSD employees.
Can you just remind us again what the tuition rate is? I just don't remember.
It's $1,500 a semester, $3,000 a year. but our per pupil expenditure was 15, if you recall. So it's a bargain.
That's a really good deal.
Yeah.
It is a
I'm not sure
bargain.
what I think about that right now, but we'll see.
Okay, moving forward, the next tab is entitled State Report Card. And at this time, the State Report Card contains no new information that is what's already been presented to you in tonight's work session. We'll move to the next tab, which is statewide statistics. And that's a green tab. It includes both state and national data. On the statistic page, page 8 through statistics page 11 are excerpts from the NEA rankings and estimate report from 2019, with Tennessee highlighted in yellow. These figures are based from data taken from the 2017-18 school year. So this is information from the NEA dated back 17-18 school year. So page 8 of this section, this offers state revenue as a percentage of total revenue receipts. Tennessee provides 46% of the total revenue spent on public education in the state, ranking it 29th in the country. State revenue only accounted for 25.2% of FSSD revenue in fiscal year 17-18. The next page reflects the local revenue as percent of the total revenue. Local revenue accounts for 43.4% of all revenue spent on public education in our state, ranking it 24th in the country. Local revenue made up 69.5% of the revenue received by our district in fiscal year 17-18. On page 10, Tennessee spent $10,089 on each student on average, ranking it 36th in the state, while our district spent $14,870 per student in fiscal year 17-18. The next page, statistic page 11, reports the average teacher salary in Tennessee. It was $50,900, ranking it 24th in the country, while our district's average salary was $57,808. The information on pages 12 through 20 are from the 1920 TEA Survey of Teacher Pay in Tennessee, with Tennessee highlighted in yellow. This document provides the rankings of school districts based on each lane of the teacher salary schedule. So we have every salary schedule represented here and how our school district ranks with that salary schedule. And I'll try to explain each salary schedule rather briefly. So if you take the full, I'm on page statistics, page 12, the full schedule average in 1920 for Franklin Special was $61,001, and it ranked 9th in the state. Page 13, a teacher entering our district with 0 years experience and a bachelor's degree received $41,461, and that ranked 20th in our state. The next page, page 14, It moves up the salary schedule with years of experience. So a teacher with a bachelor's degree at step 10 with 10 years experience would receive 50,677, and that ranked 12th in the state. The bachelor degree maximum pay for a teacher with just a bachelor's degree, maximum pay ranked first in the state at $66,300. Page 16 provides you with the average of all bachelor degreed teachers was 55,000 even, ranking 4th in the state. Moving to the master's degree salary schedule, the minimum pay for a master's degree with 0 years experience is $45,018, ranking 23rd in the state. Master's degree with 15 years experience on page statistics 18, we ranked 11th in the state at $61,997. The maximum master's degree pay ranked first in the state, $71,679. And take all the master's degree and average them together, we rank 6th in the state on page 20 with a pay of $59,709.
David, do we have any analysis on the PhD scale?
That is not provided by the TEA.
Okay. All right.
So I could get what our pay is for that, but I would not have access to data that compares it to other districts.
Okay. One trend I've noticed in looking at this salary schedule is that we've always been in a very, very favorable position to our peer districts in connecting counties. But I've noticed that the Murfreesboro City District has made some great strides last year and this year, where in the individual categories, they are, well, not significantly, but, you know, several $1,000s in most of the lanes ahead of us. I also noticed that where'd it go? The averages, of course, we are higher, and on the top end, if a teacher stays long enough, they will be paid and rewarded to a greater degree. But it seems like at the street level, where we're attracting and retaining brand new teachers, I wonder if we're at a little bit of a disadvantage there. And that's a conversation for you and Dr. Snowden and Leslie to have, but just take a look at that if you would.
Okay.
Does the salary schedule include their benefit package and what they get offered from each district, or is it just baseline salary?
Baseline salary.
Yeah. And I had a question about the district. Oh, go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
I was gonna, Mr. Stillings, if you would also look at the differential between the starting salary, for example, for the differential is less than $100 between the next 4 or 5 steps. A lot of times is the only point I was trying to make.
Okay. Hey, just another item of that stood out to me on the statistics, page 12. There seems to be some alignment between the special school district or city districts and their county districts. In Murfreesboro and Rutherford County, Franklin Special, and Williamson County. But look at Lebanon Special School District and Wilson County, all the way from number 18 for the Lebanon Special District to 123rd for Wilson County. I don't know what that means to us, but I think it's kind of interesting that there's that much of a gap between a local and between two local districts.
And David, why would there not be any information on all those school districts that are at the bottom right hand of these pages? Like Clay County, Granger County, Hickman County, Kingsport. Are those are not all achievement districts, are they? Where it says NA, 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 NA on each one of the pages. Are they, am I just missing them somewhere?
Some school districts just refuse or just don't complete the survey.
Oh, okay.
TEA asks each school district to provide this information each year, and some school districts, I mean, it's not mandatory. So
Okay.
if they don't provide it, you just don't have it.
Okay.
Or TEA doesn't have it.
Okay.
Hey, what county is Tullahoma in? Is there anybody on the call who knows that?
Coffee.
Coffee, okay.
Actually, part of Tullahoma is also in Franklin County, just for a little fun fact for you.
Oh, okay.
I've circled all the numbers.
Okay, we ready to move on? Yes?
I'm good.
Okay. Behind the next tab, the red tab labeled Finance and Administration, you'll find the non-personnel expenditure proposed budgets for all of the Finance and Administration programs. As I present each one, I'll give you a brief overview of the program and an overall summary of the expenditures, focusing mainly on significant changes in the totals from 1920 to 2021 fiscal years. Please stop me, interrupt me if I go too fast. You have any questions, wave a flag, whatever you need to do, and I'll make sure I try to honor that. So the first page is the Alternative Learning Center. Although the activities of the ALC are really a teaching and learning function, the program is via a letter of agreement with Williamson County Schools, and our district is billed and pays for 10% of the annual cost of the Williamson County ALC. For 2021, the Williamson County Finance Department has estimated that approximately $850,000 will be spent in operating expenditures for the ALC next year. Therefore, the FSSD's portion of that will be $85,000. Mr. Stillings, you're muted.
Do we pay that just based on an estimate, or do we true up at the end of the year? How does that work?
We pay that, honestly, I'll ask that question. I haven't received a bill so far this year. Dr. Stevens, do you know?
I'm more interested in a refund.
I don't think there'll be a refund, but that's not based on usage. It's based on, and there's some years when we would not have very many students, and there are other years. So if you averaged it out, it would probably be pretty accurate at 10%.
And when you think about what our students have access to, the principal, counselor, and teachers, it is a very inexpensive commitment to pay that 10%.
Okay. Moving on to F&A page 2. Business fiscal services. The fiscal services function includes both the accounting and the payroll services for our district, and there are no recommended changes in expenditures in this area. Next page represents the Gentry Foundation. And this item represents, these funds represent the continuation of our district's contribution towards the aftercare offered at district locations by the Gentry Foundation. Moving on to Finance and Administration, pages 4 and 5. Student Health Services, Coordinated School Health. Separate budgets for these programs are represented here. The Student Health Services budget represents the non-payroll expenditures associated with our 8 nurses that are located at each school. You will notice a significant increase in the requested budget for account line 735, health equipment. Our AEDs are presently 14 years old with a 10 to 12 year life expectancy. This increase reflects the implementation of a replacement schedule at 3 per year over the next 4 years. But I would like you to note, maybe in the page 2 under the explanation, the potential trade-in value of the ones that we presently have. So that remains to be seen. We possibly could get a $400 per unit trade-in value. Following the school health services budget, you'll see the operating expenditures of the state-mandated coordinated student health program. And there are no significant changes requested in this program regarding the budget. Details for both of these programs can be found on the following page. Okay. Finance Administration pages 6 and 7 represent the Human Resource Department. Human Resources is responsible for employee recruitment, retention, and benefits administration. At face value, the data presented indicates a $52,800 increase over the previous year HR budget. However, in reality, most of this requested increase is due to the reassignment of funds to the HR budget from other accounts to increase the accountability and efficiency of spending. For example, part of the requested increase of $15,600 in line 399, other contracted services, is due to the consolidation of all the background check expenses to one account from several other departments. The remaining increase in this account is to begin the implementation of software necessary to enable digital personnel records and paperless hiring protocols. Another example, the requested increase of $39,800 in salary accounts is due to the reassignment of expenses for the EQUIP program. Now you're saying, what is the EQUIP program? Hadn't heard of that program before. And you are correct. You haven't forgotten what the EQUIP program is, but it is formerly known as BANTIP. EQUIP program stands for Enhancing, you may want to write this down in an acronym, Enhancing the Quality of Our Introductory Professionals. So again, this reassignment of expenses is to increase the accountability and improve efficiency of spending. So explanation of other significant accounts for the HR expenditures can be found on the following page. And I think this was one of the questions we had bounced around the other day.
Just a quick question on the EQUIP. Is that a new program? Is it a BANTIP with a new name, different provider? What exactly is it?
It's BANTIP with a new name and a few tweaks. it's an in-house program that Miss Duke leads and heads up, as Dr. Hill did previously with the BANTIP program. But she is putting her own twist on the program, and she's rebranding it as the EQUIP program.
Because we want to make sure we equip the new teachers with what they need.
And why do we include the salaries and wages in this part of the budget, and that wouldn't be in more of a payroll budget?
Well, these are, I want to make sure I speak correctly here. These are in stipend amount for mentors. So that, if you look there,
Okay.
the 189 is other salaried, other salaries. Those are in stipends. So it does stand to reason to include it in the HR budget because they are flat rate stipends paid for mentors, veteran teachers who mentor incoming teachers. So that's a stipend amount that is a flat rate.
And is that what we were doing with BANTIP? We were having stipends for mentor teachers?
Correct.
Okay.
But it came out of other pay items, pay lanes. We've incorporated it under the HR budget to give Ms. Duke the accountability for those funds specifically.
Another reason for the change in name is that there had been a hint of that BANTIP was proprietary based on that it was part of a doctoral dissertation. And so just to keep everything clear of any possible, I guess, claims or ideas, then we felt like that we should go ahead and move away from the term BANTIP. And Ms. Duke came up with the term EQUIP, the acronym EQUIP.
And David, is this amount based on like what we anticipate, how many new teachers we'll have? And do we mentor teachers like first 1, 2, 3 years, first year only, first 2 years?
Yes, and the structure of the program will also be revamped. So it was under the BANTIP name was a 5-year mentorship. So Ms. Duke is rebranding and redesigning the program to include mentorship. I don't want to quote how long because I haven't had full conversation about what it's going to look like. But yes, that's the model.
If you recall, that model moved from a 3-year program to a 5-year program when the tenure laws changed. So we began to provide some mentorship for teachers up until the opportunity to earn tenure. There will still be some support, obviously, for those teachers, in year 4 and 5, but it won't be as formalized, is my understanding in speaking with Ms. Duke, as it was previously.
What she's considering is a step down of stipend after the new employee becomes further along. Like year 2, the mentor would make less than year 1, with the thought being in year 1, the mentor's really going to support to a significant degree. In year 2, hopefully, the support can be weaned. And year 3, the weaning even more. So she has a structure in place where she would provide a stipend at X amount for year 1 and X minus a couple $100 for year 2. I just don't know the exact dollar figure for the stipends off the top of my head. Okay. Moving on to Finance and Administration, pages 8 and 9. This represents plant maintenance expenditures. And this budget is for the maintenance department, which is responsible for the maintenance of all facilities in our district. The items highlighted in red will go away next year. You will not see these red lines anymore after this year, I promise. But this year, they're still there. It represents the one-time budgetary adjustments and expenditures associated with the Liberty Elementary cleanup. Increases in the maintenance budget are requested to cover anticipated building and equipment repairs, as well as additional supplies and materials needed to support our building, our maintenance of our building. Line 511 has been adjusted to reflect actual coverage of vehicles used by the maintenance department. We actually looked at the vehicles that they are operating, and we figured up what the insurance on those vehicles would cost, and we put it in the maintenance department. Previously, it was a guesstimate of the overall auto policy. Explanation of significant accounts for maintenance, plant maintenance can be found below the budget grid and on the following page. Okay, moving forward, pages 10 and 11, plant operations. This budget is for the plant operations, which includes custodial services, supplies and equipment, alarm services, pest control, utilities, and other necessary services for all the FSSD facilities. The projected budget includes an anticipated net increase of $65,365, reflecting the increase of disposal fees. Trash services were discontinued by the city last year, and we had a new outside vendor take over. The new proposed amount for account line 359 takes into account the new changes. We are also anticipating increased utility costs. Line 415 reflects an increase based on actual cost as well as an expected 1.5% rate increase from Middle Tennessee Electric for next fiscal year. We've already incurred a 4% increase this year on our water and sewer rates as of January 1, 2020. That is represented in line 454, and that is what attributes to the 12.5% increase over last fiscal year budget. However, some good news. Note line 434, there's a $10,000 decrease due to the anticipated decrease in our natural gas usage. I'd like to call your attention to line 502, property insurance. Also shows a significant increase. 2 years ago, all of the buildings valued greater than $1 million were appraised. And the result of that appraisal were that FSSD buildings were significantly undervalued. Last year, in an effort to reduce the impact to FSSD by applying the full increased appraised values in 1 year, Liberty Mutual offered to increase the replacement costs appraised value over a 3-year period. If we continued with this plan with the current deductibles, we would see a 27% increase over last fiscal year. A historical analysis of claims greatly supported moving from a $1,000 deductible, which is what we presently have, to a $5,000 deductible. This $129,115 figure reflects the increase in deductible as well as year 2 of the appraisal increase. there may be some questions around that, and I'll pause there to let you process that.
There wasn't any handcuffs to them over the 3-year period, were there? In exchange for phasing it in, we agree to keep a policy with them for 3 years?
No, sir. There's not, but those policies are shopped each year on our behalf by Key Risk.
That was my next question. Thank you.
I knew it would be. Okay, so moving forward.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, ma'am.
Are we still saving money with our electricity plan that we've put together many years ago? You know, we had that whole plan to lower our utility bills that we've been following. Is that still in place and being monitored and all of that?
It absolutely is, and that's with conjunction with Jeff Collins is where I received a lot of the data. Well, I received the data on my opening comments regarding the utility savings. He has spreadsheets ready at hand to compare last year to this year, to compare the baseline year. What was it? It's been a while, 8-10 years. How long have we been doing that? A while. With what the savings we incurred now. So yes, that's still being monitored.
So most of our electricity increase, utility increases because of the rate increase.
Correct. Well, now
Okay.
you're comparing it. Also need to consider you're comparing it to last year, which also had our energy management savings in place, or energy management practices, conservation practices already in place. So you're not comparing to the original year where we didn't have energy management practices in place. Okay. So you'll see some more explanation of the significant accounts for plant operations can be found below this grid, and there's more detail there. A list of contractual services and anticipated amounts for 2021 is also included on page 11 of the Finance Administration section. These are the contracts that make up the amount represented by line 399 on the previous page. It is a rather significant sum. So here's a breakdown of all the contracted services that make up the $118,000 proposed amount. Page 12. This budget represents expenditures associated with the Safe Schools Grant. The Stop School Violence Act of 2018 gave the Community-Oriented Policing Service, otherwise known as COPS, Community-Oriented Policing Service, the authority to provide grants directly to states, units of local government, or Indian tribes with the goal to improve security at schools and on school campuses. This budget represents the plan for funds expected to be received in fiscal year 2021. Funds here are budgeted for visitor management system supplies and maintenance and continued installation of window film, bleed control kits for each campus. Safety and attendance on page 13. This budget represents expenditures associated with the Safety and Attendance Office of the district. The overall budget for 2021 represents a slight decrease of $700 based on spending levels. And more explanation can be found below the account section. Pages 14 and 15 represent student transportation budget. This budget represents the expenditures associated with providing transportation to all of our students. Budgetary requests reflect an overall increase of $32,707 for the following. Account 707. If you'll take a look at account 707, you'll notice that there's an $8,500 increase to reflect new 800 megahertz radios for 2 buses expected to be purchased with bond funds this coming fiscal year within our replacement schedule. This expense will be ongoing moving forward for each new bus purchased. These radios are a significant upgrade, and they communicate directly with emergency management, and they have an alert button where they can hit and have first responders to the bus immediately without having to depend on a cell phone service. Our radios that we presently have work in our local vicinity, but once we go to field trips in Nashville or outside of our local vicinity, bus drivers depend on their cell phones to communicate back to the home base. With these radios, they have a clear, dependable communication, plus they have emergency management connection, direct connection if needed. Account 313 reflects actual expenses not previously budgeted for travel expense reimbursement to parents of special education children. So if you notice, there were not funds budgeted for line item 313, but that expense has come to our attention, and we have budgeted I believe $13,200 for that expense. Account 338 reflects an increase of $11,000 due to continued preventative and corrective maintenance. That is a bigger line item there for maintenance and preventative maintenance for our bus fleet. Notice the $2,000 decrease in account 340 for medical and dental. If you recall back when we discussed the HR budgets, I talked about moving funds from one account to another. This is an example of that. This reflects the consolidation of background checks into the Human Resources Department. That's where transportation had been paying for background checks for drivers. Line 511, it signifies a $4,757 increase in vehicle insurance due to the improved fleet, and that's the primary reason for our premium increase. Then you offer some further detail regarding other accounts are found below that accounts grid and on page 15.
Question for you. For 307, the upgraded radios that you said we don't, the bus drivers don't need to use their cell phones. Do we have that kind of some type of plan to outfit all of our other buses with that? Or as our buses age out and we put in a new bus, we'll put that new one in? That's the first question. And then the second question is, will we be using those buses for when, because of its great capacity, to go on those field trips where the bus drivers won't have to use their cell phones?
Yes, that's the plan. So
Yes.
we are planning on making this purchase of a new radio with each new bus purchase and phase it in. You know, if you take a bus radio is like $4,250, you multiply that by 35 buses, that's a big number.
Yeah,
so we're phasing the purchase of these new radios into our bus fleet as new buses come on with our replacement schedule. We have a 2 bus per year replacement schedule mapped out with bond funds.
Yeah, I saw that. Thank you.
And yes, to answer your second question, the intention is once these radios come available to buses, those will be the ones that Mr. Alexander will earmark for longer trips. We already have, if you recall, we had 3 buses in this year's expenses. They have already been purchased with those 3 radios. So this will be 5 buses with these radios after 2021 buses are purchased from the bond funds.
Thank you.
Dr. Esslinger, I have a question. but I don't want it answered now. It's just something to throw out that we can discuss at some point. Is when we purchase newer buses, people ask me, does it make sense to get buses that have seat belts? And I don't think I know the answer to that. But I don't want us to discuss that now, but just something that we can discuss at some point. Does that make sense?
Noted.
I
Okay.
have one more question also. As far as using our buses as hotspots, have we had that conversation?
Who would like to chime in on that? We've had that conversation, but I'll let someone else.
We have considered that. We're considering a lot of things when it comes to accessibility or Wi-Fi or connectivity for areas where it's not in place now. That would be one option, but we're looking at several different options. But the main thing is to ensure that students all over our school district have, the main focus is for them to have accessibility. So that is one option, but I'm not going to say that is not the only option, but it's certainly an option that not just school buses, but it could be other vehicles as well. Some of our vans, if we had to do that. So we're pretty open. We're very open rather to trying to find the best possible solution and see which one seems to be the best for the school district.
Moving on. Okay. Finance and Administration, page 16. The Child Nutrition Program. Understanding that MAC and Child Nutrition Programs are not part of the General Purpose Fund. If you take a look at the top of that worksheet there, it says Fund 143. General Purpose Fund is Fund 141. So these are not part of General Purpose Funds, but in following suit of this evening, we'll present to you the non-personnel expenditures as we've done with other programs. In the next study session, we'll discuss revenue and personnel estimates combined with these expenditures to give an overall perspective of both programs. That will actually be in the third study session. So we'll run through that rather quickly here. Child Nutrition Program reflects expenditures associated with school food service at each school, along with administration cost. The 2021 budget amount reflects an overall decrease of $15,230 in expenditures based on current level of operation and needs for next year. The expenditure components can be found below the accounts section. So if you take a note of the overall equipment line, 710, you'll see a significant savings there, or a planned savings has been met because of the equipment has been met well through our bond funds. That's why this reduction in line 710 for food service equipment. The Child Nutrition Program will request minor price increases for fiscal year 2021. Child visitor lunch from $2.90 to $3. Holiday meal of a visitor from $5.50 to $6. So they're not requesting price increases for students' daily purchases of lunches, but for child visitor lunch of 10 cents and holiday meals to adults of 50 cents. Next page represents the same for morning and afternoon care. We'll follow the same process with MAC and only present some non-personnel expenses here. You'll see that MAC, subject to the available revenues, has predicted an overall decrease of non-payroll expenditures of $24,077, primarily due to the omission of the LEAPS grant funds. However, should LEAPS grant be awarded again this year, you can bet Ms. Parks has a plan ready to put money in the allocation line items. She's sitting on go. That LEAPS grant application was a little late this year, and so we're we're unable to budget that until we find out those funds are coming our way. So MAC is recommending no fee increase for 2021. Okay, so that concludes the budgets for finance and administration. And Dr. Stevens will now review the budgets associated with teaching and learning. Dr. Stevens.
Thank you, Dr. Esslinger. All right, everybody turn your page to the gold tab of teaching and learning. I always like to give you the overall difference between the current year and the proposed year. So this year, the teaching and learning budget was, and you might want to write this down, $1,750,298. The 2021 proposed teaching and learning budget sees an increase, and the total is $2,041,146. That is an increase of $290,848. A bit more than half of this increase is in technology, just to give you a lens of where the large part of the increase is coming from. I also like to frame our conversation and remind you, as it relates to the general purpose budget, this budget that we're going to go over tonight is 4% of the general purpose budget. In other words, it is a very small budget. Obviously, within general purpose, the bulk of the funds will be discussed at the upcoming budget work session of personnel, which is about 87% of the budget. But I do like to frame that and remind you of the percent this budget is within general purpose. So we'll start on page 1, and you're looking at the COA budget. And what has happened here, Dr. Esslinger and I worked to organize some things. Some things you'll see are new within teaching and learning. It doesn't mean they never existed, but we've really tried to land them smartly where they belong. And we've tried to make things a bit more efficient. So this particular budget has simply been consolidated and placed into the Student Support Services budget, another budget that Dr. Kirkpatrick oversees. So that's why this proposed column budget is empty, but you'll see it later. Okay, turn to the next page. Communications. So this is Ms. Gentry's budget. This proposed budget is seeing an increase of $7,800, which can largely be found in the cost of a large format printer and the supplies associated with it. While this is an expensive purchase in the long run, it will save us money, as we have had to pay printing companies for all the banners, signs, etc. that we have created and made over the years. So initially a cost, long-term a savings. Also in the budget is the Be Nice initiative. As a reminder to you, state and national memberships, conferences, fees, as well as a new camera and portable lens, which will be very helpful. As you know, there is a lot of photography that happens, and we want high quality images, so we need a better camera. Right? And you may turn to the next page. Here you will see district professional learning, and you'll note that this is seeing a significant decrease of $75,000. Essentially, and you'll hear more about this in the next meeting, but to give you an idea, the new curriculum and professional learning specialists will ultimately have the same amount of dollars, but will be utilizing Title IIA dollars as opposed to the local dollars. So while it's a decrease here in this specific local budget, the actual funds toward professional learning will still exist and be available. So most of the expenditures for professional learning will come out of a federal budget, Title IIA. And those Title IIA dollars, again, to give you a glimpse, have been freed up due to a recommended change in how the elementary math coaches are funded. And you'll hear more about that in the next session. I also want you to know that that teacher center budget, that very, very expensive budget that you look at every year that's usually around $350, has now been consolidated and added to this budget, as this particular role on teaching and learning oversees that. So that's another consolidation. All right, if you will turn to page 5. This is the district-wide reading budget. This proposed budget is seeing a small increase of about $1,000, which is in the professional learning line 524, ensuring that Dr. Looney has ample funds to support the learning of reading coaches, dyslexia team members, teachers, not to mention to pursue professional learning in her role is important and needed, and we haven't had this in her specific budget in the past. The bulk of these funds of this particular budget are actually utilized for Story Bus and all the materials that go on Story Bus. All right, you can turn to page 6. This budget is early childhood education. These funds are used to support our voluntary pre-K program and includes things like instructional supplies and materials, professional learning, instructional equipment for the VPK classes in FSSD. The change in the proposed budget, that's $7,497, is to ensure the staff EZ substitute services are located here for ease of tracking these expenditures related to substitutes for pre-K. All right, you may turn to page 7. Page 7 is the ELL program and parent liaisons. This proposed budget remains the same. This budget is largely used to provide materials and supplies for our EL teachers and parent liaisons, such as organizational supplies, on-level readers, Spanish to English dictionaries, subscriptions, curricular supports, and to provide professional learning. And you may turn to page 8. This will be a new item for you. It is not new in that we have always had homebound instruction, but as Dr. Esslinger and I met and talked about some of the programs that are under teaching and learning, we felt it better, instead of being in a separate line, sort of tucked away, to lift it out and make it known. So this proposed budget remains the same, although it's kind of new for you to see it in this format, it does remain the same. This budget is used to pay homebound teachers. Please note, it's important to note in this particular item, benefits are not included in this total. Homebound instruction, or the need for it, changes every year. It is hard to predict what might be needed, but this amount has been appropriate over the last several years. This year, we had 5 students receive homebound services, some of them for the great portion of the year. Now, I will say, with COVID-19, I do have a thought that we could see these numbers increase, particularly if we do return to school and there are situations where a student or family member has a significant illness and there are some significant concerns. So it could be a year that we see more numbers. I'm not guaranteeing that, but that's been in my mind as I think about the opening of the year.
I do have a question on that, Dr.
Sure.
Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
What is our capacity? You know how we have building capacity. What is our capacity for this arena?
That's a great question. So For the last 8 years, this has been an amount that's been acceptable. And how the teachers are paid, let me tell you the process. First of all, it's an hourly rate based upon their salary. They are paid for the 3 hours of service plus an hour of planning. They submit a timesheet. We review it, I sign, and it goes on to payroll. How we get teachers, ideally, and it has almost worked to 100%, we get a homebound teacher from that child's school. This makes it easier for collaborating with teachers, getting assignments, making sure that what is needed to be taught is being taught, builds relationships, fosters relationships with the family, school, teachers, etc. So that's been the process. It will be something to watch next year. As I recall, I may have had a year where we could have been about 13 students on homebound. That might have been the biggest year that I recall. And there were an array of reasons, and that's true any year. But by and large, it is under 10 each year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. All right, the next budget, looking at page 9, it's pages 9 and 10. This is the instructional technology budget. This proposed budget sees a small increase of 3% or $733. This budget is largely used for providing professional learning, developing teacher capacity through conference sponsorships, ensuring teachers have access to other technological resources, and to pay stipends for the newly created building level instructional technology leaders. If you will remember, a year ago at this time, this particular budget did not include building level instructional technology leaders. Mr. Stillings posed the question, what's the next level? What is needed? And so instructional technology members and I met, and we really landed on this notion of a teacher applying for and becoming a building level leader. So this is now a complete budget for them. And I believe that has worked very well in this inaugural year, and look forward to seeing how that progresses over time. All right, you may turn to page 11. This budget is the Math and Science Resource Center. This overall budget remains the same. One adjustment made within this proposed budget was made to better align with the needs. The $5,000 previously budgeted in contracted services has been moved to professional learning. The science kit coordinator at the district level is no longer needed, as the adopted science materials, STEM scopes, kits, they came with our adoption, are managed now at the school level. All right, let's turn to page 12. Special education. This proposed budget shows about a 6% increase, or $36,000 roughly. The bulk of this increase can be found in contracted services, line 399, specifically 53 and 54, which covers the cost of staff EZ services for substitutes for teachers and paraprofessionals so they can attend professional learning connected to the district improvement plan.
Do you know how long we'll be having that high amount for the private agencies? Like how many years are we in for that? Because you probably know the age of the student, which I don't know or want to know, but just wondering.
It could be, if those placements are the best, a few more years of those high cost private facilities.
Do we evaluate those every year and look for other options?
The IEP team is engaged in making those placement decisions and evaluating what location is best or most appropriate to meet the needs of that student. Yes. So we will move to page 14, which is the student performance budget. This budget, which is used for TN Ready supplies, like pencils and highlighters, practice tests, printing services, honors tests, booklets, and mailings, professional learning, and more remains unchanged for the upcoming year. All right, page 15, student support services / annex. So you see that's that first budget we looked at, and I said it's moved over. So it's here in this particular budget. So this budget includes the COA budget, which now makes this easier to manage and track. Just to give you an idea, last year these two budgets combined totaled $18,854 proposed dollars. This year, the amount is $19,445, essentially a $600 increase. This budget covers things like 8th grade career fair, supplies, materials, and professional learning for school counselors and social workers, copy machine cost, postage equipment, postage fees, and printer cartridges. On page 16, you will see summer school, and as you know, for this summer, that is something that is still being considered and monitored. And once we have more information, decisions will be made about that. It's very possible that that offering could occur in July. It could occur in a variety of ways, phase in, virtual, in person, all of that TBD. FMS and FIS host the district's 3-week summer school for students in 5th through 8th grades. This proposed budget shows a minor decrease of $1,000, which more accurately reflects the salaries and benefits for this year's summer school. To give you an idea of last year, in 2019, we served 50 students in summer school. FMS had 21 students, PGMS 11, and FIS 18. In terms of grade levels, we had 8 5th graders, 12 6th graders, 16 7th graders, and 14 8th graders, somewhat consistent across those grades. All right, on page 17, this is just a reminder that the Teacher Center budget was consolidated, and you've already seen it in the district professional learning budget, and that's why this proposed budget column is empty. We turn to page 18. This is the teaching and learning budget. This proposed budget sees a small decrease, a little over $1,000, about 2%. This budget covers an array of items connected to teaching and learning, such as grant team members, RTI2B district coaches, who've presented at a board meeting before, that currently they are Tanya Ituri and Betsy Bagsby, the grant coordinator, Advance Ed, or now it is called Cognia, so you may want to make a note of that, Cognia dues, that's our accreditation, professional learning, consumable materials such as report card covers, RTI reference guides, class record books, kindergarten roundup materials, and there is $1,000 allotted to each principal and assistant principal for professional learning. If you'll turn to page 20. This is the technology budget. As noted in my opening remarks, this particular budget has seen the largest increase. So this proposed budget reflects a 17% increase, or $153,749, which is the largest of any budget in TNL. The bulk of this increase falls in 2 areas: contracted services in regular instruction, line 399, and another line 399, other contracted services in technology. Contracted services in regular instruction saw an increase of $66,960. These funds go toward all of our instructional software programs. Most programs went up in cost, with the two most significant cost changes being with Achieve 3000 and iReady Reading for grades 3 and 4. The other contracted services and technology went up nearly $80,000. While there were many increases here as well, the largest is $33,450 toward Edulog, which is adding bus GPS and updating maps, and $26,000 to Securely, a web filtering software that helps monitor how students use devices and lifts up any concerning searches. It identifies possible safety concerns such as statements around self-harm, bullying, or other inappropriate activity. This is something we have been using in grades 5 through 8, and we have found it to be incredibly helpful. And we now want to add it K4 because we recognize children of all ages may need some additional help and support. So this safety measure is quite important. Additionally, we are adding with Securely some filtering related to Google Drive. So it will do those searches within Google Drive as well, not to mention a teacher management portion that will be new. By the way, we did pilot it this year with several teachers and monitored it and compared it with another vendor out there. This means that teachers can actually, through their computer, monitor all the computers on theirs. They can shut down a page, they can communicate to the student right away without making a sound, and it all happens through technology. And this was really powerful for me to observe and watch, and extremely helpful in managing devices in this way, especially as we are moving to so much so in terms of technological advances here in our learning. Any other questions about technology? I know there were several questions. I think I've addressed those. All right. So we'll turn to page 24. This is Young Scholars Institute. As you all know, Young Scholars is a self-supporting program where revenue and expenditures closely align. This budget looks a little different, as you can see the shift to Staff EZ as the YSI employer. This is located near the bottom of the page, line number 399, contracted services. In terms of the FSSD operating budget for YSI, there is a proposed amount of $29,000. That is the same as last year. This covers consumable materials for YSI, other items that may be needed, and the opportunity to provide funds to FSSD programs should there be added revenue.
I have a question. This budget for Young Scholars covers the session that would have occurred in June of this year, or one that will occur June of next year?
Will occur June of next year.
Okay.
2021.
Okay.
Good question.
And I do want to bring to your attention the Staff EZ, just to service and staff Young Scholars, their contracted rate is 10%. So it's not the typical for the substitute pay. So it's a different addendum to our contract that's at a different rate.
Why would that be lower? No, I'm not complaining, but why would it be lower?
It's a one-time, Staff EZ also provides staffing for different camps and different short-term needs, such as Young Scholars, whereas substitutes is a revolving door of constant hire, constant training, constant usage, where this is a one-time hire for the duration of Young Scholars, and then that program's completed for the time.
Gotcha. Thanks.
So will the Young Scholars program still be a self-supporting program, or will we have extra charges now because we're using the Staff EZ?
Actually, there'll be a savings to Young Scholar, because the payments that we would have incurred with Social Security and Medicare are just about the same as the 10% contracted rate, which if you take that and add it to the HR resources that will be expended in hiring folks as employees of the district, it's a win for us, definitely. Does that answer your question, Ms. Newman?
I've got a question, and this is about the hiring for young scholars. We're still going to be able to get the same quality, and if there's someone who's done a class for a long time and they've done it beautifully, they'll still have an opportunity to do this again.
Absolutely, yes. We're hoping just to redirect the young scholar teachers to Staff EZ and go through the hiring, and we'd even grandfather in their background check. There's a lot of things we've already talked for next year. You know, we had the wheels rolling for this year, but the world sort of blew up on us, so we decided to punt. Okay, that concludes budget work session 1. Any further questions or anything that you guys would like to have cleared up, or questions regarding process or moving forward?
No, but I feel like we should get a whoop whoop from Dr. Stevens like every chance we can, because we're not going to have a lot more of those.
Instead, how about this? I'm so glad we've had this time. Who is it?
Errol Burnett.
Whoop, whoop.
You gotta tug your ear while you do that. Okay.
Would it be hard, because each page that we go through, a lot of them have line items for in-services and staff development. Would there be a way for us to get a lump sum of what we usually invest in for our professional development and staff in-services? Would that be hard to do? I know they're in each budget, but it would just kind of be nice to know what percentage of our budget do we commit to developing staff. I think that would be nice to know, since we obviously do a lot of that. Would that be hard to come up with? I could go through and do it myself, but it might be easier if you have a program that knows how to figure it out.
I have a calculator that can figure it out. I don't have a program, but I have a calculator that can figure it out for you. So are you also referring to the professional development budget presently managed by Dr. Decker, as well as all the 524 line items from every budget provided tonight?
That'd be great. Thanks.
Questions, comments?
I just wanted to say, I know we're looking at everything with such a fine-tuned laser, focus on where we can save money, but I'm so appreciative that we're not cutting costs where it counts, where for our professional development, just that professional learning is so important to me, and I'm so glad that we're not making any cuts there. And I already appreciate in advance your thoughts on the buses. I think that's going to be I thank you for considering those measures.
Great job, Dr. Esslinger, Dr. Stevens, and I know others who've helped you out, but great job, great start.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess, David, we'll talk about the venue for our next meeting as time gets closer to it, correct?
Yes, unless you want to talk about it now.
Well, let's just wait and see, how things
Okay.
progress, if that's okay with the group.
I do think that we could possibly do it in a multipurpose room and have, even if we needed to do so with limited participation, and But that's up to, we'll see how it comes over the next 10 days, or, well, we can't wait 10 days. But I think we could wait at least till the end of this week before we have to announce to the public about.
And when is that next session? May the what?
28th, which is a Thursday, a week from this Thursday.
May 28th.
I mean, if we wanted more time, if you thought it was important to be together, I don't know if we would want to move it to the first week of June, or do you think it's important to have it that soon?
That's up to you. I mean, it could be moved to possibly that.
The last session is June 15th, correct?
Correct.
That's up to you, Tim. I just was thinking about it, if you wanted to wait.
Tell you what, Dr. Stone and I'll talk executive committee and throw a couple ideas out to the board. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.